Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is now time for the return of the Front 7 podcast. I am your host, Money Mike. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Front 7 podcast right here on YouTube. Cheap pops always work. It is the AFC draft reaction show. Now don't worry, if you're a fan of an NFC team, I'll have a separate podcast for that coming up. Now, since it's been so long since I've done a podcast, one of the things I realized when I was trying to put together a draft preview podcast is that the post-production takes a little bit longer than what I thought it would. So, I could not get that up in time before the draft started. So, this is actually the first show of, the return of the Front 7 podcast. So, I guess it's a good thing because we have the AFC draft reaction. I'll talk about all the teams in the AFC and what they did in the draft. And of course, the hot topic of the week, Deflategate, and how the Patriots, how Tom Brady got busted for giving memorabilia away, autographed stuff in return for the footballs being deflated. Did this go back all the way to 2006 when Tom Brady went to the NFL and demanded a rule change that teams should be able to bring their own footballs if they are the road team? So how long has this been going on? Who knows? No matter how long it's been going on, the NFL has finally released the bad news for Tom Brady. Because Tom Brady, I'm afraid I have some bad news. You are going to be suspended for 4 games. What? The NFL really screwed this one up, didn't they? I get it. After Goodell had a very embarrassing 2014, he is trying to make up for it. After everything that happened with Peterson, Rice, Greg Hardy, Ray McDonald, everything, all that, I get it. Goodell needs 2015 to be a makeup year for him. He needs to come back looking strong. And he failed. I can understand if this was an 8-game suspension that would eventually get reduced down to 4. I would be alright with that. Totally understandable. I would have no issues with that, to be honest. Yeah, I said Tom Brady should be suspended for a year. Yeah, do I wish it was for a year? Yes. Because the NFL needs to send a message that says, do not tamper with the footballs. Do not take air out of it for a competitive advantage. Teams need to be on an equal playing field. Boom. That's it, right? Very simple. But no, they say 4 games. Brady's already appealed his suspension, which very well might go down and be reduced down to 2 games, for all we know. Which may make it even worse. Because now the NFL, if his suspension gets reduced down to 2 games from 4, boy, do you just want to feel sorry for Josh Gordon if that happens. I mean, when you think about this, Josh Gordon got a harsher penalty, essentially suspended for 2 years for doing something that's legal in 2 states and maybe even more. Because I'm pretty sure by now marijuana laws have probably been passed in other states other than other than Washington and Colorado. Anyway. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm agreeing with, DUI, DWI, all that other stuff. Okay, I do not condone drinking and driving. Josh Gordon is an idiot for doing such thing when trying to get, try to be able to play again in the NFL. And, then he gets suspended for this year. And, I get why he was suspended, but for Tom Brady to affect the integrity of the NFL, the integrity of the game, by trying to get a competitive advantage over your opponents, and you only get 4 games, which very well could get reduced down to 2, man, I think that has to encourage other teams to deflate the ball as well. I wouldn't be surprised if teams actually try that in minicamp, try that in training camp, and see exactly how big an advantage that was for the Patriots. And, 4 games down to 2, you know what? These other teams are going to see it as we didn't lose our guy for 2 games. And they won a Super Bowl? Losing our quarterback for 4 games, 2 games, in exchange for and deflating the ball in exchange for a Super Bowl trophy? I would take that chance if I was some other team. If the Patriots are only going to get off with that, I mean, $1 million fine. Yes, it's the biggest fine in NFL history, but that's chump change for Robert Kraft. That's nothing for him. $1 million is like probably in his couch somewhere. It's nothing for him. And Brady's going to appeal it, which is ridiculous. And the Patriots have fired the 2 equipment people. Come on, really? You defended those guys, then you fire them. Gee, the NFL is not going to think of anything suspicious of that, right? I mean, did you fire them and pay them off to keep quiet, or is TMZ eventually going to pay hackers to find the text messages on Tom Brady's phone that Tom Brady would not hand over to the NFL? In which case, if you're not handing something over, that means you're hiding something. I don't know. If I'm Tom Brady, I would not want hackers to hack into my phone. Maybe you were paid off by TMZ or the guys that you just fired to go on to be paid by TMZ or ESPN, wherever, and spill the details, the real truth behind those text messages. And believe me, if TMZ was able to get inside the elevator footage of Ray Rice hitting his wife, trust me, Tom Brady, you should have just cooperated with them in the beginning, gave them your phone, because if or when TMZ either pays the dudes that the Patriots fired to spill all on the text messages, pay somebody to hack into Tom Brady's phone. Yeah, let's see here. What happened to Ray Rice after TMZ paid somebody off to get the elevator footage from inside showing that he hit his wife, or then-time fiance? You don't think TMZ is going to pay somebody off to hack Tom Brady's phone? Just like they paid somebody off at the casino to get the inside the elevator footage that the NFL claimed that they couldn't get, but TMZ did? It's going to get ugly before this is over. And all I'm going to say to end it is, if TMZ gets the text messages, pay somebody to hack his phone, Tom Brady is going to be in more serious trouble than he is now with a 4-game suspension that will get reduced down to 2. But anyway, this is the AFC Draft Reaction Show, so let's get back to the 2015 NFL Draft. I will go in order of the teams based upon the draft order. Obviously, that means I should start with Tennessee. But no, I'll come back to Tennessee in Marcus Mariota in a minute, because the latest right now, because I really want to touch on the Dante Fowler injury. So let's start off in Jacksonville. It is a shame. I really do feel sorry for Jaguars fans. You know, they go out, they draft a great defensive player. Fowler would have instantly improved their defense. And, you know, I know Gus Bradley is trying to install what worked in Seattle down in Jacksonville. And Fowler would have been a piece of that. Now Fowler, he's out for the year, torn ACL, his first practice. Now we're going to have to wait until 2016 to see the kind of impact that Dante Fowler can make for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the rest of the draft, I must say, Jacksonville, I love their draft, to be honest. You know, Fowler, the Dante Fowler pick aside, TJ Yeldon in the second round. Love it. He was a guy that I thought could sneak in at the bottom of round 1. Maybe to Dallas at 27. As, well, Darren McFadden is not reliable. So I thought maybe TJ Yeldon could sneak in the bottom of round 1 to Dallas at 27. And for Jacksonville to give him at 36 to replace Toby Gerhart, who was a total bust. And I remember all last year I kept watching his draft status in fantasy football because I thought Toby Gerhart would be like a sleeper pick. So I got to watch and see where he would go and where he would go and see how many picks I can take before I would actually have to take him. And then Gerhart ended up being a total bust. Now, their third round pick, even better. They drafted Brandon Linder last year to solidify the right guard spot. You know, they signed Zane Beadles away from Denver in free agency a couple years ago, I believe, or a year or so ago. But now they have a guy in AJ Cam that can solidify the left guard spot for years to come. James Sample, their fourth round pick. A guy that I thought should have been picked in the third round. Very instinctive safety. I think he's going to provide a boost to that secondary that Jacksonville desperately needs when you're facing Andrew Luck twice a year and you're trying to compete in the AFC South. Now you add Marcus Mariota into the mix of the quarterbacks they have to stop. And, well, Houston has Brian Hoyer and Ryan Mallett. Anyway, the future of Justin Blackmon is in jeopardy. Will he play again? Will the Jaguars trade him? You know, last year they drafted a couple receivers. You know, this year they add Rashad Green in the 5th round, Neil Sterling in the 7th round. And if my computers can work right here, folks, okay, here we go. So they added some more receiving weapons for Blake Bortles. They added another tight end into the mix, Ben Kayak, in the 7th round. Unbelievable. I mean, they added Julius Thomas in free agency. Mercedes Lewis, you know, he took a pay cut to stay in Jacksonville. Now you add a young guy that they can develop behind those two. The pick that I absolutely love the most about Jacksonville's draft is the 6th round, pick 180. Michael Bennett, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. How on earth he fell to the 6th round is beneath me. He was a guy that I had in the 2nd, in the 3rd, 4th round. And he lasted until the 6th. I even thought maybe he could be a late 2nd rounder. But yet he was there in the 6th round for Jacksonville as they continue to try to build a team, a competitive team, I should say, as they've just been through so much with no franchise quarterback, with no stability at the coaching staff. It's like maybe with Gus Bradley, maybe they have some kind of stability there, and Michael Bennett, another talented guy to add to their defense. Absolutely wonderful. 8-8, that's quite possible. This might be the year Jacksonville kind of starts to get in the conversation of, we may be able to see them in the playoffs in 2016 if they have a really good 2015. Okay, now, let's go back to Tennessee here. And, okay, my computer does not want to cooperate with me here, people. Alright, so, with Tennessee, the big talk. Would the Tennessee Titans trade away the rights to Marcus Mariota to the Philadelphia Eagles? Would they trade away to the Browns? Or would they even take Jay Cutler from the Bears, who made a late run at Marcus Mariota, and we're offering Jay Cutler in the deal to the Titans? But after all the hoopla, after all that hype of a potential trade, nada. Nothing. No trade. The Titans take Mariota themselves. There was a lot of reports saying that they had support. They were supporting Zach Mettenberger, and there was even some wild report that, oh hey, he may be the next 6th round steal. He may be the next Tom Brady. Yeah. Apparently, the Titans don't think so. Their draft was so-so, I will say. I do love their first 2 picks in Mariota and their 2nd rounder, Dorial Green Beckham. Green Beckham, he's a guy who, top 10 talent. Take away the off-the-field issues, he might be playing in Oakland, not Amari Cooper. He might have been the first receiver taken off the board, not Amari Cooper. But the Titans, thanks to all the off-the-field issues, and now have a legit number 1 from their new quarterback, Marcus Mariota. Hey, it's a passing league, so the Titans are doing what they need to do in order to keep up with the AFC. With the AFC South, with Andrew Luck and the Colts. Speaking of which, this actually might be very effective for the Titans. Because when I get to the Colts, I'll explain why, if they keep ignoring their secondary, the Colts will never see a Super Bowl in the Andrew Luck era. And if they don't improve their secondary, Dorial Green Beckham and Marcus Mariota are going to have field days against them and could potentially be fighting for the division this year. Hey, it's a passing league. We've seen it. Titans, you know what? Their defense is actually pretty good. So now they have a legit franchise quarterback in Mariota, a legit number 1 receiver. Titans could sneak in that wild card race come January. They could upset the Colts. Who knows? Alright, so I'm not going to try to discuss all the picks, just, the picks that I love, the questionable ones, things like that, because I don't have enough time to actually do all that, which is why this is just the AFC at the moment, not all 32 teams. Here's another team. Like I said, I'm going in the order of the draft in which an AFC team is, or was chosen, or was picking, So, Tennessee, Jacksonville, Oakland, yada, yada, yada. Oakland had, they had a good draft. I mean, if you look at it, and okay. If I ever stop mid-sentence because my computer's acting up. Okay. Amari Cooper. There are a lot of discussion. Oh, Kevin White, he ran a good 40. Oh, hey, Oakland, they pick people based upon 40 times. He's going to go number 4 to Oakland. Wrong. Reggie McKenzie says this is a new era for the Raiders. He is going to take people based upon their talents, not their 40 time. And Amari Cooper, just like Mariota, now Derek Carr has a legit number 1 in Amari Cooper. You see these young quarterbacks out there now. Andy Dalton has AJ Green. You can now say Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, Marcus Mariota, Dorial Green-Beckham. These NFL general managers are smart. They know it's a passing league, so they're giving their young quarterbacks all the weapons that they need in order to succeed in the NFL. And of course, the Raiders did sign Michael Crabtree to a 1-year deal. So, they're really trying to get Derek Carr some weapons. They got Clive Walford in the 3rd round, a tight end. But they're another team that's on the rise that could be a threat in the future, especially if Derek Carr develops into a quarterback that they think he can be. And speaking of, this will be a discussion for another podcast, but maybe the first round you don't need to draft a quarterback anymore, because you can find an Andy Dalton, you can find a Derek Carr in the 2nd round, or a Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. Alrighty, let's go back to the AFC East. The New York Jets picking 6th overall. Vic Beasley, my pick for them in my final mock draft. Easily, I thought it would be Vic Beasley. They need a pass rusher. They traded for Brendan Marshall. And with both quarterbacks gone, the most logical choice was Vic Beasley. But I wasn't planning on Leonard Williams being available at 6. The Jets have Muhammad Wilkerson, and they have Sheldon Richardson. They're already set at the 3-4 defensive end position. So, logically, do the Jets pass on him? No, because the Jets took the best player available and, the best player in the draft. Leonard Williams fell to 6, and the Jets took him to even better improve their defense. They went out, they brought back Revis, they brought back Cromartie. Now they bring in Leonard Williams. That's huge. And what also makes it interesting is Muhammad Wilkerson wants a new contract. Guess what? They just drafted your replacement, and Sheldon Richardson is going to get the money for an extension, and Williams is going to be the guy in New York to replace Muhammad Wilkerson. I always tip my glass over because I'm excited that I'm doing this podcast and I'm able to bring the Front 7 podcast back to YouTube. That I almost knocked my drink over saying that. Now, for the Jets. After Leonard Williams, they actually had a decent draft. Pretty good draft, actually. Devin Smith in round 2. Lorenzo Malden. They get their pass rushing help out of Louisville. But the most interesting pick for the Jets, Bryce Petty in the 4th round. Pick 103, Bryce Petty. Now, the Jets, they have Geno Smith. They have Matt Sims. So they bring in Bryce Petty. So Geno Smith has been put on notice, because now they got a young guy behind him that if Geno falters this year, we might see some Bryce Petty as a starting quarterback for the New York Jets. I have to go all the way to 12 for the next AFC team because, like I said, this is a AFC draft reaction, and that would mean the Cleveland Browns, who, I will applaud Ray Farmer. I think everybody should. Yeah, he screwed up last year big time, drafted Manziel and Justin Gilbert, but this year he nailed it. Danny Shelton at number 12. The Browns could not stop the run that saved their life. And when you look at that division, you look at Pittsburgh, Le'Veon Bell, Baltimore, Justin Forsett, Cincinnati, Giovanni Bernard, Jeremy Hill. You look at that division, they have to stop the run. And they do so perfectly by bringing in Danny Shelton to man the front lines. And then, Ray Farmer, smart enough. A lot of people questioned this pick. Number 19, Cameron Ervin. A lot of people said, they got Alex Mack. Well, guess what? Alex Mack can opt out of his contract after this year, in which case he will, unless he sees some improvement in the Browns, maybe. And as we know, Cameron Ervin can play any position on the line. And I think what the Browns could and should do is put Ervin in right guard this year so he plays next to Mack, which will only strengthen their offensive line. And then you kick Mack over to center for not Mack. See, I'm talking about him so much. But Ervin in right guard this year, you slide Ervin over to center in 2016 when Alex Mack opts out of his contract to go play for a contender. Nate Orchard in the third round, solid pick. They lost Jabal Sheard to the Patriots, so the Browns needed a new pass rusher. Yes, they got Barvicious Mingo, they got Paul Kruger. Well, just like every other Ravens free agent, they bust when they leave Baltimore. Paul Kruger has not been the same Paul Kruger we've seen in Baltimore. So when the Browns realize that they overpaid him, Nate Orchard is going to be a solid replacement when they let him go. Duke Johnson. They needed a running back. They need to get into the game in the AFC North. They need to find their own running back, and Duke Johnson may very well just be that. The pick that I think is going to be so interesting for the Browns is, and I'm pretty sure I'll get his name wrong when I say it, Ifo Ikpri Alamalu. Sounds like Troy Polamalu, which makes it a whole lot easier for me to pronounce. Anyway, if he can be healthy, and there's a lot of speculation of him dropping because his knees weren't in good shape and, things like that. But if he is truly healthy, then the Browns will have found a gem in round 7 to help fix their secondary. Now, maybe Justin Gilbert does become a good corner in case that Ifo is healthy. The Browns might have found a gem in round 7. Just saying. Ray Farmer, you made up for last year. This was a good draft. And you said that you were going to focus on the lines. You weren't going to take a receiver. You were worried about your lines because, as everybody knows, you win the game in the trenches. Okay, let's see. Scroll around here. To my next AFC team. Which in case I got 3 AFC teams in a row with the Dolphins, Chargers, and the Texans. For the Miami Dolphins, they flirted with a lot of receivers, brought in Greg Jennings, brought in Michael Crabtree. But the Dolphins won overall because they were patient enough to sit back and just watch Devontae Parker fall into their lap at pick 14 in the first round. Jordan Phillips in round 2, another solid pick. Yes, they added Ndamukong Suh. Yeah, they play the 4-3. But you know what? They needed some good depth. Jordan Phillips provides that. The Dolphins, when you look at their offensive line, their weakness on that line is the guard position. So bringing in a Jamil Douglas out of Arizona State to help compete for either the left guard, right guard, whatever Miami has plans for him is good. Because they cannot go into the season with their offensive line at the guards with their current set of guards. Here's the interesting part. We move to San Diego at 14, who traded up. Now, maybe they were worried the Texans were going to take Melvin Gordon. No, that wasn't the case. Texans coveted Kevin Johnson, who I will get to in a little bit. So it was San Diego that fell for Houston's trap. And San Diego moved up to get Melvin Gordon. Remember, Ryan Matthews, no more. So now maybe the Chargers have finally replaced LT in San Diego with Melvin Gordon. And that's pretty much about it. I mean, their draft was so-so. I mean, Denzel Perryman, great selection in round 2. I think when you look at it, I think a lot of teams tried to do what the 49ers did with Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman. So now the Chargers have Denzel Perryman to pair up with Monte Teo in the middle of their defense. Now, let's go to Houston. Back to the AFC South here, folks. Boy, the AFC South sucked, because all 3 of them picked in the top half of the draft. All 3 of them did, and the Colts were the only one picking in the 20s. No wonder why the Colts can win the division so easy. Houston says, no more. Andrew Luck, no more. No more passing on us, because we're going to take Kevin Johnson in the first round. Then they add a great inside linebacker, Benardrick McKinney, who I love as a selection because Brian Cushing, he's great, but the Texans just really needed to strengthen the middle of that defense. And somebody help me with this one. Why was Jalen Strong still on the board all the way to the 3rd round when Houston was smart enough to trade up and get him? I don't know why, but you know what? Andre Johnson, he's now in Indianapolis. They just found themselves a nice replacement in Jalen Strong. Okay, now that we've done the roundtable of the AFC South, let's go to the AFC West. The Chiefs surprised everybody on the Thursday night of the draft when they took Marcus Peters, the cornerback from Washington, at 18. A lot of people projected him in the 20s because of his off-the-field issues. Apparently, Andy Reid took a trip to his hometown and, met with him and everything, liked him enough to take him. But, Peters was one of my guys that I thought the off-the-field issues were overblown, and I thought he was going to be a great pick for anybody. So I think Kansas City just finally replaced Brandon Flowers. Mitch Morse in the 2nd round. They let Rodney Hudson go to Oakland. They needed a new center. They traded for Ben Grubbs to strengthen the offensive line. Now they got a guy that can replace Rodney Hudson. For the Chiefs, last year, all year, no receiver was able to catch a touchdown pass. Maybe Chris Conley, the wideout from Georgia, can change that. But you can't change Alex Smith's underthrown ability, because Alex Smith cannot throw a deep ball. Some more corner depth for them and Steve Nelson. They're in the 3rd round. Outside of it, their draft was okay. Now, like I said, I covered both picks for the Browns. But now I'm to my head scratcher of the draft, because I can't seem to figure out what Cincinnati was thinking with their first 2 picks in the draft. I really can't. They drafted 2 guys that are going to be bench warmers right now for this season, and drafted 2 guys for next season. Now, aren't you supposed to draft guys that help you win in the upcoming season, not a year from now? If the order was reversed, If they would have took Jake Fisher at 21, it would have been understandable. Because I actually had Jake Fisher going at the bottom of round 1 with the team trading up to get him in my final mock draft. And then they would have took Cedric Ogbury in the second round. It would have made a lot of sense. But they took Cedric in the first, and Jake Fisher fell to them in the second. Now, Jake Fisher is a good steal in the second round. I like that pick. I'm not bashing it, but why would you pick for the future and not pick for the now? I don't understand that one. Unless, of course, they end up trading Andrew Whitworth, who is not happy. And he wants an extension. And if I'm a team like Carolina or Tampa Bay, I would call Cincinnati and see what the cost would be to acquire Andrew Whitworth and give him a contract extension. Carolina, we know their offensive line issues. Tampa Bay needs to protect Jameis Winston. If I'm one of those two teams, I'm calling Cincinnati and finding out what the price is to trade for him. And then find out what he's looking for in money. Just saying. May want to keep that in mind. Tampa Bay, Carolina. I can't knock the Bengals for the rest of their draft, I will say. Tyler Kroft, amazing tight end. He will be a great replacement for Jermaine Gresham, who is still a free agent right now. Paul Dawson, the linebacker from TCU, great selection. Josh Shaw in the second and the fourth round, another great selection. They needed some corner depth. Darren Smith out of Fresno State. What a steal in the 6th round for the Bengals. I did really like their draft outside the top 2, which was strange. Alright, moving to Pittsburgh. Now it came out the Steelers were wanting to try to trade up for Trey Waynes. So they were trying to fill their corner need. But when Minnesota took him, he was off the board. But luckily, just like every year, Pittsburgh gets a top prospect who falls to them. This year it was Bud Dupree. Now, I don't know why he fell. I'm not too sure. But a solid pick because Jarvis Jones has kind of been a bust. James Harrison can't play forever, so they need a long-term guy at outside linebacker. But I do love round 2 because round 2, what's funny is that they panicked. The Steelers panicked when the Ravens took Max Williams from them in round 2. The Steelers were sitting there hoping for Max Williams to fall to them, but nah. Ozzie Newsome said, no, I'm going to get Joe Flacco another weapon to go along with Rashad Perriman, which I will get to later when I talk about the Ravens, and said, no, I'm going to get Max Williams. And Ozzie also smart enough to know that the Steelers are trying to replace Heath Miller. So they jump him to get Max Williams. Then the Steelers panicked and they took a 5'9" corner, Sanquez Goldson out of Mississippi. 5'9" corner. They panicked and took a small corner. Unbelievable. The Ravens are already ahead of the Steelers, my friends. Sammy Coates in the 3rd round. We know the Steelers, they find gems in the 3rd round. Sammy Coates is going to be another one of them. Another one of those 3rd round receivers for the Steelers that turned out to be really, really good. They addressed their corner need again with Doron Grant. He's 5'10", so they draft 2 short corners. In a league where we see receivers that are 6'5", 6'6". Yeah, good luck with that one, Pittsburgh. They do get their tight end, though. In the 5th round, local, Penn State, Jesse James. Boom. So they get somebody. At least he is 6'7". At least they didn't draft a small tight end. But, as you can see, teams don't need to panic in the draft. See what happens when you panic? This is what happened to Pittsburgh when the Ravens jumped them to take Max Williams away from them. And that's why the smart GMs stay for a long time. That's why they build championship rosters, because they never panic. The Broncos moved up. Now, this is interesting. It came out that the Broncos traded up to 23 because they felt the Ravens would have took Shane Ray at 26. another bad move. Don't try to project what you think's going to happen. Now, yes, you may want to jump somebody, because they may take a guy. Like the Ravens, they jumped the Steelers to get Max Williams. But at the same time, see, Ozzie Newsome knew that the Steelers would have took Max Williams. The Broncos assumed that the Ravens would have took Shane Ray at 26. Very bad assumption, because John Harbaugh confirmed Rashad Perriman was like number 14 on their board. Now for the Broncos, the main question heading into this year is, can they win a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning before he retires? Because if you watch that game against the Colts, he looked like he was going to be dead. I mean, he looked like he was done. But Peyton Manning is coming back. So the Broncos decide to get some help. They get some defensive help because DeMarcus Ware is 30-some years old, so they need a young pass rusher. They get Ty Sambraglio in the second round to beef up that offensive line, to keep Peyton Manning upright. They continue to beef the offensive line up in the fourth round with Max Garcia. They need a long-term center. And unfortunate news for the Broncos is, just like Dante Fowler, third-round pick Jeff Heuerman, tight end out of Ohio State, tore his ACL. So he's gone for the year. That's two rookies that are going to be redshirting their rookie year, when both of them were expected to contribute. Because the Broncos, they lost Julius Thomas. Heuerman, I'm sure, would have had a big role in Denver, especially with Peyton Manning as their quarterback. The question for the Broncos has to be, is how well is Peyton Manning's arm, and will it last throughout the year? We'll see. We'll see what that does. Now, 26 for the Ravens. Alright. The Ravens stayed put. And as I mentioned earlier, Rashad Perriman was number 14 on the Ravens board. And you can look this up on YouTube. John Harbaugh confirmed in an interview that Perriman was number 14 on their board when they were on the clock of 26. And that if Perriman was gone, they would have traded out. So they were not going to take Shane Ray. Every year I have to ask myself, why do teams let good players fall into the laps of Ozzie Newsome? There's a reason why the Ravens are contenders year in and year out. Because when you have drafts like they had this year, they're going to be in contention. Now, many people, no, they're not going to be able to function without Haleti Ngata. They're going to be fine. The Ravens have replaced plenty of players. They'll be fine. But it is interesting to note that this is the most offensive-heavy draft for the Ravens since 2008, when ironically was their first two picks that year were two offensive players, Joe Flacco and Ray Rice. This year, Rashad Perriman, Max Williams, Joe Flacco, go to McDonald's, wherever you want to do and celebrate. You got some new toys to play with. But Ozzie Newsome, he loves defense. So don't think that he's not going to get his way with defensive players. Carl Davis, defensive tackle out of Iowa, should not have been there on the board in the third round. Should never have been there. But yet, they got him. And he's going to help replace Ngata. They lost Pernell McPhee. Zadarius Smith out of Kentucky. Boom. Right there. Replacement. And that makes it interesting because Bud Dupree out of Kentucky was drafted by Pittsburgh. Javorius Allen, the running back out of USC. Great fit for Mark Trestman's offense. We saw in Chicago what he did with Matt Forte. That's what he wants. That's what he's going to do with Javorius Allen and Justin Forsett. Expect their receiving yards to go up. And to cap off the draft, they get another receiver in Darren Waller, 6'6", out of Georgia Tech. Seems to me the Ravens, they're tired of stalling in the red zone. They're tired of not scoring touchdowns. They're tired of taking field goals, even though they have Justin Tucker. They're tired of it, so they went out and got some big weapons. And I mean big weapons. Darren Waller, 6'6". Rashad Perriman, 6'2". Max Williams, 6'4". So they're giving Joe Flacco some big receivers. We know their defense is already good, but now their offense is going to be might be even better than when they won the Super Bowl back in 2012. Alrighty, let's see. I think that's it. Okay, here we go. Colts and the Patriots. The Patriots, I want to make this short and sweet. Malcolm Brown, very solid pick. He should not have been on the board at 32. I love their pick there. But the rest of their draft, reports came out that New England only had like 15 draftable players, and everybody was taken, so they panicked and took guys around earlier than most expected. So a lot of people said, Jordan Richards in the second round, Geno Grissom. Even though I did like the picks of Trey Flowers and Trey Jackson. I love those picks. But for the most part, New England kind of reached. Outside of Malcolm Brown, he should definitely help replace Vince Wilfork, who went to Houston. Now, I want to get back to Indianapolis because I want to save them for last. I have a rant for Jim Irsay and Ryan Grigson, because you're not going to win a Super Bowl in the Andrew Luck era if you keep neglecting your defense. Now, before Colts fans load up the comments, oh, the Colts are going to win a Super Bowl. The Colts are going to, yada, yada, yada. I get it. I really do. I do think that the Colts will win a Super Bowl under the Andrew Luck era. Except recent playoff history shows that their secondary is going to be a problem if they don't fix it. Okay, now look, I went back to the recent drafts, all the way to 2012 when they first drafted Andrew Luck. Now, over the years, total from 2012 to 2015, they have drafted 18 offensive players and 12 defensive players. Now, 30 picks, 18 offensive, 12 defensive, good balance. I'm not going to knock them from that. But if you look at their history, they have neglected their secondary. And let's throw Deflategate out the window. Let's look at the results on the field. I don't care, regardless of what it is, okay? Look at the results on the field. And it will show you, when you look at this, your Pro Football Reference, just like I am right now, it will show you exactly why the Colts are not going to win a Super Bowl in the Andrew Luck era unless they do something about their secondary. Let's look back at the playoffs last year in the AFC Championship game against the Patriots. Now, they did hold the Bengals and the Broncos to 10 and 13 points the weeks prior to the AFC Championship game against the Patriots. But deflating a ball does not have anything to do with your secondary giving up 45 points in a game. Deflated ball or not, there is no excuse for why your secondary is going to give up 45 points to the New England Patriots. None whatsoever, okay? Let's go back to 2013 against the Patriots. Again, they gave up 43 points in the divisional round. In a divisional round loss to the Patriots. 43-22. 43 points. Now think about that for a second. 88 points they have surrendered to the New England Patriots in the playoffs the past 2 years. Go back to the week prior to that in the wild card game against the Chiefs. Put up 44 points against that Colts secondary. 44 points. 44. They've let the Chiefs score on them. The Patriots, they've given up 88 points. Unexcusable. Deflated ball or not, your secondary cannot give up 40-some points a game when it matters the most. Look, I know the Colts signed Andre Johnson. They got T.Y. Hilton. They signed Frank Gore. Look, it doesn't matter how many points Andrew Luck and them score. Look, they can score as many points as they want. But if that opposing defense, all offense is putting up 40-some points a game and is matching every touchdown Andrew Luck scores or every touchdown that Frank Gore gets running the ball, you're not going to win. It's going to come down to whoever has the ball last. And the Colts secondary has yet to show they can do anything about it. The history between the Colts and the Patriots under Andrew Luck. Again, Deflategate aside, even in the regular season, the Patriots have the Colts defense and their secondary figured out. Because in the regular season, the Colts, in 2012, Andrew Luck's rookie year, the Colts defense, their secondary, gave up 59 points to the New England Patriots in a 59-24 rout. Cannot happen. Last year in the regular season, 42-20. Boom. Again, giving up over 40 points a game to the Patriots. Deflategate or not, the facts are proven that the Colts secondary cannot stop the New England Patriots from scoring. And it will continue to be a fact until the Colts start focusing on their secondary, which brings me to their draft history since drafting Andrew Luck. 2012, first pick, they drafted Andrew Luck. Round 2, pick 34, Kobe Fleener, Andrew Luck's teammate in Stanford. Tight end. At that point, the Colts were rebuilding. They needed some new players. I understand the pick. Round 3, pick 64, Dwayne Allen, tight end. Another one. At that time, a lot of teams were trying to go with 2 tight end set, just like the Patriots were doing. Round 3, pick 92, T.Y. Hilton, wide receiver. He's turned into a great player. I cannot knock him for that. Round 5, pick 136, Josh Chapman, nose tackle. Round 5, 170, Vic Ballard. Round 6, a receiver. Round 7, an offensive lineman. Round 7, pick 214, a linebacker. And again in round 7, Mr. Irrelevant Chandler Harnish. In that draft, 2012, 7 offensive players, 2 defensive players, none in the secondary. 0 secondary players. 2013, 7 picks, kind of balanced. 4 offensive players, 3 defensive players. 2 secondary players. If you include the fact that they essentially used their second round pick on Vontae Davis, who they acquired from Miami. So let's go with that one as a defensive player, okay? Other defensive players in that draft, Montorie Hughes, a defensive tackle. Round 6, pick 192, John Boyette, safety. 3 defensive players, and only 2 secondary players taken, or used, I should say, in that draft were for Vontae Davis, which they gave up their second rounder for, and John Boyette. 2014. We all know how stupid they were for trading for Trent Richardson, let alone giving up a first round pick for it. In which case turned into Johnny Manziel. 0 secondary players taken in that draft. 4 offensive players, only 2 defensive players taken in that draft. Jonathan Newsom and Andrew Jackson. What do they do in round 1? Oh, I know. Let's just keep scoring a lot of points and neglect the fact that our defense absolutely sucks and our secondary can't stop anybody, namely Tom Brady, who will keep torching us in the secondary and torching us in the playoffs, because unless Philip Dorsett can actually play corner, Tom Brady's going to keep doing that one. And he's only been suspended for 4 games, folks. So, the Colts are going to have to deal with Tom Brady anyway. This draft here was actually the most defensive-heavy draft that they've had under Andrew Luck. 5 defensive players compared to 3 offensive players. 5 defensive players were taken, 2 secondary players. Dejon Smith, cornerback. Clayton Gaithers, a safety. That's it. Now, they did add Henry Anderson, they did add David Perry, and they did add a Marlo Heria at inside linebacker. But if you look at that one, ever since Andrew Luck, they've only contributed 4 picks to the secondary. To that secondary to do anything to improve it. I mean, hello? How much longer are you going to sit there and keep watching Tom Brady pick you apart in the playoffs and in the regular season, in which case, the regular season, by the way, that helps determine seeding. And losing to New England in the regular season, losing to the AFC teams, you're losing tiebreakers. You're losing a bunch where that could give you better playoff seeding. The Colts are pretty much content with their secondary being torched. And as I stated earlier, you now have Marcus Mariota. He has a new number 1 receiver in Dorial Green-Beckham. You look at Houston. Well, depending on who wins the battle. I don't know. Depending on who can win the quarterback battle there. But they have receivers there that are going to be really good and tough to stop. Except for the fact that Hoyer and Mallett probably aren't going to produce much. So they might be lucky there. But when you look at Tennessee, you look at Indianapolis secondary, there's a good chance Tennessee could actually compete for the division. Let me look at this here. I got the depth chart pulled up. The Colts secondary, alright? You got Greg Toller and you got Vontae Davis at corner. Fine. I have no arguments for that, except for the fact that they keep getting torched. So maybe some improvement needs to be done there. You look at their safeties, which is where they keep getting killed. Mike Adams, Dwight Lowry, who they signed this year. You can't just keep patching up that secondary. You had, when I look at this, Mike Adams. You had an immediate upgrade at Landon Collins, who I have heard is doing so well with the Giants right now in practice and his first mini camps. You had him right there 28 or 29. And you pass him up for another receiver after you just signed Andre Johnson. You have T.Y. Hilton. And you go get Dorsett and you pass on a potential upgrade in your secondary in Landon Collins? Really? Like, I don't get what Ryan Grigson is thinking there in Indy. I really don't. I mean, you look at the AFC. Tom Brady is only suspended for 4 games. And you look at their regular season schedule. So, that means when the Colts play the Patriots on Sunday Night Football in week number 6, Tom Brady's going to be there. Tom Brady is going to be throwing the ball. So, come on now, Indy. What are you going to do? Tom Brady going to torch you, 50, 60 some points in that game too? You have to improve that defense. Otherwise, you're just not going to win a Super Bowl under the Andrew Luck era. They know the kind of impact players, safeties can be. They had Bob Sanders. They know how much of an impact they can make. But they passed one up on Landon Collins to add another receiver. Crazy. That the Colts are just okay with Andrew Luck doing everything himself and just saying, you know what, Andrew, go out there, score 60-some points a game, and we'll hope our defense doesn't allow 60-some points a game. That's pretty much what they're doing. Pretty much what same mistake they made with Peyton Manning, which resulted in their dreadful 2011 season, which brought them Andrew Luck. Because they didn't put no talent around Peyton Manning, and they're doing the same mistake with Andrew Luck. And that is going to do it for the return of the Front 7 podcast. There you have it. Tom Brady suspended for the first 4 games of the 2015 season. Personally, I thought it should have been for a year because you're messing with the integrity of the game. 4 games I think is too late. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Did New England get let off easy? Did Tom Brady get let off easy? And does this encourage other teams to deflate the ball and have their own quarterbacks give memorabilia to their equipment people in exchange for deflating the ball? Does this encourage other teams to do so? You know what? If you're only losing your quarterback for 4 games, why not? And don't forget my NFC draft reaction. Subscribe to my channel for more Front 7 podcasts. And I am working on a separate non-football related podcast. That will be just kind of like right now I'm working on a working title. The Everything Else podcast, which will allow me to discuss non-NFL things, video games, other sports, things like that. So, thank you for listening. I am your host, Money Mike. Leave your comments below on Tom Brady, and I will see you again next week, hopefully, for the NFC draft reaction.